Okay, so this will not be covering every single thing we went over in class, but it will definitely give you enough of the basics to catch up. So I have two different squares that I've drawn here. One I drew using object drawing, right? So it's all kind of self-contained. If I want to change something, I have to double click, right, to get these two separate things. The other I didn't, so it's got this problem right here where if you move things, they can overlap and cut into each other, right? And I had mentioned before that object drawing is a good way to get things to work more like Illustrator, or you can keep everything self-contained. They can all be on the same layer and not interact with each other, and that's good. But if you want to do anything like animation, or getting any tweening in there, or making buttons and things like that for a website, we need to turn these into something called symbols. Symbols are kind of like objects where it takes a whole bunch of different pieces, say the fill and the outline, and it combines them into one package, but it's sort of a more formal way of doing that. And it's going to cause everything to show up in your library. Let's see here. There we go. So things will start showing up in your library. You can title them, and there's a lot more you can do with them, right? So I'm going to turn these into two different kinds of symbols, just so we can look at the way both of them work. So this first one here, this blue one, I'm going to go to modify convert to symbol, right? That's the way we would find it in the menu. And we get this little box that comes up, and I can call it movie clip because I'm going to turn this one into a movie clip. You can see there's a type here. There are three different types. We're going to stick with the top two for the most part. The third one is kind of like a movie clip, but with a lot less options, and I usually kind of stay away from that one, right? So I'm going to hit OK, and you're going to see it kind of changes a little bit, right? When you select it, now we've got this white point right here, and you can see it shown up in our library. All right, so the second one, I'm going to turn it into a button. So I'm going to double click to get the whole thing. Instead of going up to the menu, I'm going to hit F8 on the keyboard. So if you like hotkeys, that's what I would use. I'm going to call it button. I'm going to make sure I change it to a button here. You can change it later, it's just a slight pain. And hit OK. And so now when I select them, they kind of act the same, right? You select them, you get the thing in the middle. In the library, you can tell they're different by this symbol right here. That's a symbol for a button, that's a symbol for a movie clip. And if you ever want to change the name, you can double click where it says, there we go, the name right there. You can change it to whatever you need to, right? But one key thing about symbols, no matter what kind they are, is that what exists out here on the stage is technically an instance. What that means is that if I say pull more of these off from the library, all of these blue ones here are looking to the one in the library for how it should function in some ways. Some things we can individualize. We can take our free transform tool and we can change this, no problem. But let's say I wanted to change the color, right? So I've said before, if you want to change something, you need to double click and you can go inside. This happens to be an object, so I have to double click again. There we go. And you can see I'm inside the drawn object that is inside the movie clip that's inside the scene. Little complex, but not too bad. And if I click on that, I can change the color. And whoops, you can see that they all change color. So what's happening is as soon as you go inside this thing that says movie clip, you are inside the thing in the library, not the one individual instance out here, right? So anything you do that goes inside here is going to change all of them. Now this is good if you have multiple instances of something and you suddenly need to change all of them at the same time. It's a good way to make alterations to multiple things all at once. Obviously that can interfere if you want them to all be kind of different. So one common methodology is to, let's say there's something more complex. It was a little movie clip of animation, and then you needed them to all be different. You would make the one, you would get it exactly as you want it, and then you can always right click duplicate. And once you duplicate, right, this copy, I'm going to throw a piece of it out here, I can go inside this and this one changes but the others don't, right? Because I've made a new symbol. It's completely separate from this one. It was based off this one, right? But it is different from that one. And it's the same thing for buttons. Any type of symbol this applies to, it's the same rules. Alright, I'm going to get rid of most of this junk here. Alright, so back down to 2. One's a movie clip, one's a button. So all symbols follow that same rule of pulling from the library. Anything that comes on the stage is an instance of what's in the library. They're all tied together. There's differences, though, between movie clips and buttons. Chiefly this difference. If I double click on this movie clip, right? So I go inside. I'm inside the movie clip. And I do something with the timeline. Let's say I go up to frame 30 and I say 5, right? So I've given myself 30 frames to work with. You can put animation inside this movie clip. If I go back outside of the scene, see how there's no frames? These are 2 independent timelines. They're full timelines. So I can put a whole animation in this movie clip. I can tween it just like we were doing the spaceship. I can, here, I'll tween it right now. Create motion tween. Oh, whoops, it'd have to be converted into another symbol. But you can do anything you want on this timeline and then come back out to the scene, and this, whatever's going on in here will run in a loop. And then you can make this timeline longer, right? You can make it look different. You can put keyframes in. You do all sorts of stuff. It'll be different from this timeline, which is now shorter. So that's a movie clip. Movie clips can contain any number of things, any number of layers, any number of frames on the timeline. Buttons are a little different. Buttons, if I double click on this, and there we go. You can still have as many layers as you want, but you'll see that the timeline looks kind of funny. There are only 4 spots because buttons have inherent sort of technical abilities that they do, and it's to make life easier for you, right? So 3 of these are states, and then 1 of them is a parameter. So the states first. Up means this button is just sitting there. That's what it looks like. Over is what the button looks like when you hover over with the mouse. So I'm going to hit F6 on my keyboard. It's going to create a keyframe here, and I can change something about how this looks. In this case, I'm going to change that. There we go. Sorry about that box that keeps popping up. We're going to move that over to the other monitor. So now this will highlight whenever I hover over the mouse. Well, how do I know that? Well, the only way to know that is to, it won't play in the scene, right? This is interactive functionality. We have to test it. We have to go to Control, Test Movie. I always test in Flash Professional. And you can see as I hover over, I didn't really make it very, a big change. There we go. So we're going to go back to that overstate. We're going to select that. And I'm going to go to Properties, and I'm going to make it bigger. This is stupid big. You would never do anything quite this extreme. But I'm going to test the movie again, and there you go. You can see as I hover over it, you can see the mouse cursor changes, right? It changes to a hand. And it simply knows that this is a button. And so we didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to code anything, right? It just automatically knows it's a button. The downstate, I'm going to hit F6 again, get a new keyframe, so I can do something different on this frame than I did on this frame. And the downstate is what happens when you click, right? Like what it looks like when you click before you release and go to a new page or open a window or whatever it is you want the button to do. And there's a couple of different ways to animate this, right? One is to simply move it down a few frames, right? So when we click on it, you can see it kind of looks like I'm pressing the button down. Undo that. The other way is to shrink it ever so slightly. Oh, that's not shrinking towards the middle. We're going to do... And that's shrinking not towards the middle either. That's unfortunate. It should be shrinking towards this center spot right here. Alas. Come on. Oh well. I'll have to kind of manually put it back to where it was. There you go. But you can see you click on it, it kind of looks like it's depressing a little bit. You know, it's that fake sort of 3D motion of, oh, it's going further away from us, therefore it's shrinking. All right, but we do these things so that people understand what parts of a website or game or something are interactive, what parts they should, you know, this is something, no, this is nothing, but oh, look at this, I can click on this. What is it going to do? I don't know. But what's nice about buttons is that that part of the interactivity is built in. I don't have to code anything that says these different states. Now, if I wanted to go anywhere, if I wanted to go to a different frame or anything like that, that takes a little bit of work, but it's not too bad. And you can't, excuse me, we're going to go over that later. But for right now, just understanding that that type of interactivity is built into a button is what we need to know. This fourth state called it's more of a parameter. What it does is it specifies exactly what area is considered the button. So I can actually, you never see it, so I can make it look completely different. I can add to it, right? So I can add this segment down here, and what that means is that it will consider anything where there's graphics here to be part of the button. Now, why would I have this weird spot down here? Well, there are reasons actually. Chief among them, a lot of times people will have maybe some sort of word underneath, and so we can say, oh wait, no, actually it wouldn't be in here. We can put it out here. Let's say you put labels on the button, and so you get rid of that. There we go. So let's say I, put some text down here, and that way the button's labeled with whatever it is. Well, what happens is when people are interacting with something, you sometimes expect the label of the thing to interact with the button, or at least be a part of it. So by changing the hit state to include this section down here, we're never going to see that, but now hovering over the word text, right, that includes this activating. Right? The word text doesn't do anything, but when you're hovering over it, even this area out here, you can see the edge is right there. So you can see the edge isn't quite with this, so I might want to, fix that, finesse it a little bit. But that's what the hit state does. All right, so your the in-class work that was from this week is to take the buttons that you designed and that you submitted, that you designed, but they're still flat, and turn them into actual functioning buttons. So collecting any and all pieces that might belong in it, and then you would hit modify, convert to symbol. You would choose button as the type of symbol, and then I want you to come up with just very simple interactive aspects, whether it's they highlight or get a new border or anything like that, for when the over state and the down state, which is another word for click state. Don't worry about the hit state. That's that's later. That's just information. But you want to have them be kind of similar, right? So if you choose for everything to shrink on this button when you click it, you want your other buttons to shrink in the same fashion. Otherwise, it doesn't necessarily look cohesive. All right, so you'll submit that under its in-class work symbols. I think it's in class 4, but it's up in the Blackboard now, so there's not too many things there. You'll be able to find it. All right, and I do believe that was it for the in-class work. The homework for this week was to make the changes that I sent. Make sure you watch the video that goes with that Word document, otherwise the won't have all the information, and I usually give like a couple solutions and things, so it's not too bad. But I'll be grading those characters on Tuesday. Oh, I'm sorry, I won't be grading the characters on Tuesday. I'll be grading the design on the buttons on Tuesday. The characters are not due until class on Friday. My goodness. All right, and I do believe that's it.